Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe and turn on notifications. Adrian Finch lived his life according to calculated certainties. As an actuary for a major insurance firm in Manchester, his profession was the art of predicting the future, based on the immutable logic of the past. He assessed risk. He identified patterns. And he built models that transformed the chaos of human existence into predictable outcomes. His life was a reflection of his work. Orderly, efficient, and secure. Everything had a place, a purpose, a statistical probability he could understand and account for. His marriage to Sloane was, in his assessment, a low-risk, high-yield portfolio. They had been married for 5 years. He had met her, Sloane, then 27, at a gallery opening she had reluctantly attended. She was a ceramicist, a creator of beautiful, imperfect things from shapeless lumps of clay. Her hands were always smudged with dust, and her laugh was a chaotic, unpredictable sound that initially registered to Adrian as a statistical anomaly. She was the creative variable in his stable equation. And for a long time, the system worked flawlessly. He provided the structure. She provided the color. Their home was a testament to this balance. His minimalist furniture, softened by her asymmetrical vases and earthy pottery. Their evenings followed a predictable, comforting rhythm. Quiet dinners, shared silence while he read industry journals and she sketched new designs, followed by 2 episodes of a streamed series, before bed at 10:30 p.m. Sharp. There were no major conflicts. No dramatic upheavals. It was a well-oiled machine. And Adrian was its proud architect and maintenance engineer. The first deviation, from the established pattern, was so minor he almost dismissed it as statistical noise. It began 3 months ago. Sloane, who mostly worked from her home studio, started spending one night a week out. "I'm going to Phoebe's," she would announce, grabbing her coat. "Just need to vent about a client and drink too much wine." Phoebe was her best friend since university. A photographer with an equally flexible schedule. Adrian had always categorized this friendship as a positive external support system for Sloane. He encouraged it. It was healthy, logical, for each partner to maintain independent social connections. He never felt jealousy. Jealousy, to him, was an irrational emotional response to incomplete data. He trusted her. Trust was the bedrock of their entire operational framework. But one night a week became 2. The explanation was always the same. Phoebe's having a tough time with her landlord. Or, Phoebe just needs a friend tonight. The reasons were plausible. Adrian logged them mentally, noting their consistency. Then 2 nights became 3. This was no longer a minor deviation. This was a pattern shift. A significant alteration in the system's core parameters. He sat in his quiet living room, the silence amplified by her absence, and felt an unfamiliar sensation. It wasn't anger. It was disequilibrium. The house felt improperly balanced. The schedule was disrupted. He began to rationalize the change with his professional mindset. Perhaps Sloane was experiencing a period of increased stress. Her work was subjective, a high-volatility career path. It was logical that she would require more frequent consultations with her primary support contact. He told himself this. He ran the numbers, created a mental model, and tried to accept it. But his internal analysis kept flagging an error. The data didn't feel right. When Sloane was home, she was a ghost. Physically present, but emotionally absent. The frequency of spontaneous physical contact had dropped by what he estimated to be 94%. Intimacy had become a scheduled, infrequent event. He tried to address it logically. "Sloane, I've observed a change in our routine. Is there a stress factor I should be aware of?" She looked up from her phone, her expression unreadable. "I'm just tired, Aid. A lot on my mind." The answer was too vague. It lacked specific, quantifiable information. It was an empty data packet. He was known at work for his ability to spot vulnerabilities, the hairline crack in a fortress of numbers. And now, his analytical eye was fixed on his own life, watching a crack spread through the foundation. He could not ignore the sound of it breaking. The system was failing. And Adrian Finch, always found the root cause of a failure. The next phase of Adrian's response was subconscious at first. Then, deliberate. He began a period of intensive, passive data collection. He told himself it wasn't spying. Spying was emotional, a desperate act. What he was doing was purely analytical. A diagnostic check on a malfunctioning system. He started a mental log. Time of departure, typically between 7 and 8 p.m. Stated destination: Phoebe's flat in the northern quarter. Return time, usually between 10 and 11 a.m. the following morning. The consistency was a red flag. Her phone became a focal point of his analysis. It was always with her, face down on a surface beside her. He observed the way her fingers flew across the screen. The faint, secretive smile that sometimes touched her lips. He didn't need to read her messages. The behavioral metrics were telling enough. Screen time had increased. Notifications were muted. The device was now a private fortress. One evening, he attempted a controlled experiment. Sloane was in the kitchen, packing a small overnight bag. "Phoebe needs me. Is everything all right?" Adrian asked, his voice calibrated. "She seems to be having a lot of difficult nights." Sloane didn't look at him. "It's just life. You know how it is." He did not. His life was a series of predictable inputs and outputs. "Well, send her my best," he said, monitoring her reaction. There was none. No flicker of guilt. No hesitation. Her composure was flawless. The composure of someone running a secure, encrypted program. The emotional distance between them grew into a chasm. He would lie in bed, the space beside him cold. When she came home, she moved with a quiet efficiency. "How was your night?" "Fine. Tiring. Did you and Phoebe figure things out?" "Sort of. It's complicated." The answers were firewalls, designed to block any further inquiry. He was being shut out, treated like a user with restricted permissions. It was an unacceptable state of affairs. His analysis started pointing toward a single, high-probability hypothesis: the introduction of an unauthorized third party into the system. It was the most logical explanation. The secrecy, the emotional withdrawal, the fabricated alibi. The name Phoebe was being used as a decryption key to mask another activity entirely. He felt a cold knot tighten in his stomach. A physiological response he registered with detached curiosity. This, he supposed, was what other people called dread. To him, it was simply the dawning realization of a critical security breach. The pain was secondary to the need for confirmation. A hypothesis was useless without verifiable proof. He needed one more data point, one more event that would provide the opportunity for a definitive test. The opportunity came the following Tuesday. Sloane was getting ready to leave again. She kissed him on the cheek. A fleeting, dry gesture. "Going to Phoebe's. Won't be back till morning." "Okay," he said, his voice level. "Be safe." He watched her walk out the door. He waited exactly 10 minutes. Then he walked into his home office, sat down at his desk, and picked up his phone. It was time to run a system diagnostic. It was time to ping the server and see if the connection was live. Adrian located Phoebe's number in his contacts. He took a steadying breath. To ensure his voice would be perfectly neutral, he pressed the call button. The phone rang 3 times. "Hello?" Phoebe's voice was cheerful, clear. "Hi, Phoebe. It's Adrian Finch." Briefpause. "Adrian. Hey, what's up? Everything okay?" He proceeded directly to the primary query. "I was just wondering, is Sloane there with you?" The reply was immediate, without a hint of hesitation. "Sloane? No, she's not here. I haven't seen her since last week. I thought she was at home with you." There it was, the definitive proof. The alibi was false. Adrian felt a strange, cold clarity wash over him. His hypothesis was correct. "She's not there," Phoebe repeated, confused. "No. Why? Did something happen?" He needed to terminate the connection. "No, nothing's wrong, just a miscommunication. Thanks, Phoebe." "Adrian." "Wait." He hung up. He stood motionless. The lie was confirmed. Now, he needed to ascertain the true location. He needed coordinates. He opened his laptop and navigated to a browser bookmark he hadn't clicked in years. Their shared location tracking account. It had been Sloane's idea, a safety measure. He had ensured it remained active. He entered his credentials. A map of Manchester loaded. His own blue dot was stationary at their home address. And a second blue dot, representing Sloane's phone, was pulsing steadily 20 minutes away. In a residential area in Didsbury he had never been to. She was at a destination. He copied the address into a note. He grabbed his car keys. He didn't feel rage. He felt the focused, purposeful drive of an auditor on his way to inspect a discrepancy. He was going to see the problem. With his own eyes. The night was cool and damp. He arrived at the address, a modern, glass-fronted apartment building. He parked across the street, in the shadow of a large oak tree. Killed the engine, and waited. He was patient. He could wait for hours. Nearly 2 hours passed. The street grew quiet. At 12:34 a.m., the main door of the building opened. A woman stepped out. It was Sloane. She was not alone. A man was with her. Adrian zoomed in with his phone's camera. He recognized him. Rhys. A freelance furniture designer. He's just a friend, she'd said. You don't need to worry. Adrian had never worried. He had simply filed the information away. He watched them talk. Then, Rhys leaned in and kissed her. It was not a friendly peck on the cheek. It was a long, deep kiss. The kind that leaves no room for misinterpretation. The kind that confirmed a shared history, an intimacy that had been happening outside the parameters of his own marriage. Adrian's chest felt tight. But his hands were perfectly steady. He raised his phone and began documenting. He took a series of 5 photos, capturing the entire duration of the kiss. The lingering embrace that followed. Click, click, click. Each shutter sound was a satisfying confirmation of fact. When Sloane finally got into her car and drove away, Adrian waited. Then, he started his car and drove home. He had his proof. The audit was complete. Now, it was time to prepare the report. Adrian arrived home before Sloane did. The house was cold and silent. He walked to his office, connected his phone to his printer, and printed the 5 photographs. He chose the highest quality setting. Every detail, sharp and undeniable. He laid the photos out in a precise, overlapping row on the dining table, like exhibits in a legal case file. He then sat down, opened his laptop, and began drafting an email to a solicitor. At 10:15 in the morning, he heard her key in the lock. Sloane walked in. She stopped dead when she saw him at the table. Her eyes went from his impassive face to the series of photos. Her face drained of all color. She stared at the images, her hand flying to her mouth. Adrian said nothing. He simply watched her. The facts spoke for themselves. Adrian, she whispered. I can explain. He remained silent. She took a shaky step forward. It's not what it looks like. Rhys. He's just a friend. I was confused. I had too much to drink last night. I didn't know what I was doing. The excuses were weak. Riddled with logical fallacies. Adrian finally spoke, his voice calm and controlled. You have claimed to be sleeping at Phoebe's place multiple times a week for the last 3 months. Last night. I called her. Sloane froze. You called Phoebe? I did, he confirmed. She informed me that you were not there. So, I utilized the location tracking service we both agreed to use. It led me to an apartment building in Didsbury. I found you. At Rhys's place. The man you always said was just a friend. Tears began to stream down her face. The predictable emotional response. Adrian, please, she sobbed, trying to move closer. Please, listen to me. I felt so alone here. I still love you. We can fix this. We can go to therapy. We can. He cut her off. His voice, a scalpel. A personal crisis is addressed through communication, not through systematic deception and betrayal. He tapped a finger on the first photograph. These were taken last night. You left his building at 12:34 a.m. And you kissed him. So do not present me with a narrative about being confused. You knew exactly what you were doing. She tried to reach for his hand, but he pulled it away. I have already packed your essential belongings. They are in the guest room. I have also contacted a solicitor. The process has begun. Her face crumpled. A solicitor? Adrian, you can't. We've been together for 5 years. You can't just throw it all away like this. He finally stood up, his tall frame casting a shadow over the table. He looked her directly in the eye. I am not throwing anything away, Sloane. You already did that. You made a choice that invalidated the entire contract of our marriage. I am simply recognizing the breach and liquidating the damaged asset. This is a logical consequence of your actions. Sloane continued to plead, her words dissolving into incoherent sobs. But Adrian was already walking toward his office. He stopped at the doorway and turned back one last time. You have until the end of the day to collect your things. Anything left behind will be donated to charity. He closed the door behind him, the click of the latch echoing the final, decisive end of their marriage. The tribunal was over. The verdict was final. There would be no appeal. The days that followed were a blur of procedural efficiency. Adrian operated with the detached focus of a project manager overseeing a complex demolition. The emotional fallout was just another set of variables to be managed. Sloane sent long, rambling texts. Apologies. Excuses. He did not reply. He forwarded them to his solicitor. His lawyer was impressed with his preparation. The evidence was airtight, the time-stamped photographs, the location history, a written statement detailing the long-term pattern of deception. The process moved quickly. Adrian threw himself into his work, finding comfort in the clean, unambiguous world of numbers. The quiet of the house was no longer a void. It was a clean slate, a system restored to its optimal, single-user state. He methodically sorted through their shared belongings. Her pottery now seemed like clutter. He packed it into boxes and had it delivered to Phoebe's address. He was erasing her from the system. A few weeks later, he received a long message from Phoebe. An apology. She had suspected something was wrong. She felt guilty. Adrian read the message twice. He analyzed its content. An attempt at absolution. He found it inefficient. He replied with a single, concise message. You had no contractual obligation to me. She did. Phoebe tried to respond, but Adrian had already blocked her number. She was a compromised node. A security risk. He had no further use for that connection. The most challenging encounter occurred a month later. He was at a coffee shop when Reese walked in. The man approached his table. Adrian, he began. Look. I'm sorry. Adrian looked up from his tablet. He took a slow sip of his black coffee. You owe me no apology, he said, his voice even. You weren't the one who made vows to me. You were not a signatory on the contract. Reese was speechless. He stood there, expecting a scene. He received nothing but cold, dismissive logic. Adrian picked up his tablet, stood, and walked out. Reese was merely the malware she had chosen to download. The divorce was finalized in just under 3 months. Adrian sold the house, liquidating a depreciated asset. He bought a smaller, modern apartment. Clean lines. Smart technology. No personal history. He rebuilt his routine. Optimized it. He had successfully identified a critical vulnerability, isolated the threat, and purged it from his life. He had done everything right. The failure wasn't in his system's design. The failure had been a user error. And that was not his fault. Almost a year passed. Adrian's new life was a model of streamlined precision. His apartment was minimalist. His schedule was optimized. His emotional state was a flat, steady line. He considered himself healed. He mistook control for peace, and solitude for strength. One Saturday afternoon, he was in a gourmet grocery store when he saw her. Sloane was standing by the cheese counter. She looked different. Thinner. For a moment, their eyes met across the aisle. He saw a flicker of recognition, then shock. She stopped talking, her gaze locked on his. He saw her lips part, as if she was about to speak. For a fraction of a second, the old system threatened to reboot. A ghost of an emotion. Adrian acknowledged it, processed it, and dismissed it. He gave her a single, polite nod. The kind one gives a former colleague. Then he turned his attention back to the coffee beans, placed them in his basket, and continued down the aisle. Without a backward glance. There was no anger. No bitterness. There was simply nothing. She was an archived file. A closed case. The matter was settled. When he got to his car, he sat in the driver's seat for a moment. He felt a profound sense of lightness. The successful conclusion of a long and difficult project. He had moved on. Not in a messy, emotional way, but in a clean, decisive manner. And in that moment of quiet, clinical triumph, he finally understood. The betrayal hadn't destroyed him. It had revealed a fundamental truth about his own design. He was a man who, even when faced with emotional pain, chose logic. A man who, when confronted with deceit, refused to descend to that level. He had maintained his integrity, his dignity. And that, he concluded, mattered more than any apology Sloane could have ever offered. He started the car, the engine humming to life. His perspective had been permanently shifted. Some people, he mused, operate on corrupted code. Their entire lives a series of patches designed to hide the flaws within. And others, like him, had the courage to run a full diagnostic, to face the truth, and to execute the necessary commands. He was moving forward without regrets. Without looking back, he had made the right choice. He had protected the integrity of his own system. The greatest revenge, he realized as he pulled out into the Manchester traffic, wasn't to tear down the person who betrayed you. It was to rebuild your own life without them. On a superior, more secure platform. It was to live well. Logically. Efficiently. Really well. The system was now stable. The equilibrium had been restored. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next.